Right, so this is the forge cowl fitted in. I've welded the top up, all sorted. That's going through. Brackets are onto the wall there. Welded a couple of nice angle brackets in on each side, and I've painted it with stove paint. So there we go. So that's sorted out. So what we're doing now is I've got the 1/4 inch steel plate, and I've marked out basically, do some quick measurements on this. On the steel plate I've gone 63 centimeters long by 51.5 centimeters width. Then what I've done is I've measured to the center, and then I've marked out a box which is 6 centimeters wide that way, and 180 6 centimeters that way, and 180 millimeters, 18 centimeters across that way. So the idea now is I've marked out 45-degree angles from those center points back out to the corners. I'm going to run an angle grinder through those points there, from the 4 points. I'm going to cut out that center section there, probably using a drill, but that can be done afterwards. So basically that's going to have a square hole in the center with a piece of box section running down from it. So cut the 4 corners, bend the 2 length sections up to an angle that I have pre-calculated. Then once they're bent up to an angle, then I'm going to bend these 2 end pieces up, and I'm going to weld them underneath. Now these will obviously have some leftover metal underneath, because obviously when these 2 sides bend up, these pieces here will be longer than they need to be. So I will weld in the surplus section underneath, and then grind the surplus back off. So the grinding on this plate's coming out quite well now. I managed to, I'm really going quite economic on the discs. It's cutting through this quite well, just sticking it over a pallet and then lining the cuts up over a slot, and you can pretty much do this quite well. So what I've done is I've ground through the 4 slots, then I've partially ground through the rectangle in the center where all the bends are. So what I'm probably going to do now is just slide it over the end of this pallet and bend the 2 side pieces over to the prescribed angle, and see how I go. And then once they're done, bend these in. Not so easy. May have to do it in a vise. Not sure. Maybe if I put clamps on on each side of here, and then I use my feet, I think that could work. Try that over there. May have to make the slots cut deeper in there. Right like that. Try bending it up. No, it does not bend it up. Try again. Big hammers. Could do with someone else standing on the back while I jump on there, and then it would probably go. Okay, well, I'm going to have a little think about it for a bit. Right, so basically all I've done is I ran the grinder through a little bit deeper on the backs of the plate on the side, which was over there. Then I took it to the edge and gave it some good thumping with a very large persuader, and it bent over. So I've taken it to approximately that angle. Now, if I was to get a steel rule or something of that nature and stick it across, you can see that in the centre at the moment, well, if I was to put that level, which I will just guess at, you've got about 4 inches of depth there for coal or clinker or what's the other, not clinker, I can't think of the other stuff, the smokeless stuff to go in. So 4 inches isn't too bad. I'm sort of roughly reckoning. I might have to keep feeding it a bit. So so that's going to be 4 inches by across. It's going to be around 17 or 18. And that way it's going to be, what did we measure that? I think it's 25 running along the length. So obviously it's thinning out at the sides, but you can build the coal up into a heap anyway. So just because it's 4 inches deep there doesn't mean you can't have it 6 inches deep in the centre. So I reckon that's going to work out. So what I've done is I've flipped it over now. I've clamped down the two ends on the pallet, and I'm sticking a small wrecking bar or crowbar, if you want, under the other side and prising it up. So once I've done that, then I'll move over to the sides. I'll grind them. They should be a lot easier to pull up. Then once they're all in position, I'll get the MIG out and start doing the welding. Once I've welded up the 4 corners, then I'll cut the centre out. Not too bad. Just go over this bit here again. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Even the sheep think so. Yeah. Just taking my anvil for a slide. My back's not as good as it used to be, so I'm not very good at picking up anvils anymore. So I'm doing a little bit of model railway work here. I'm using some Unistrut and laying them down, doing the old Von Ryan's Express. You know, take the rail from the back and put it back in front and then push the anvil forward, or in the movie's case, the train. Anyway, I've got to get it all the way to the garage, so I'm not going to let you see all that. Right, back to the forge. You're looking in a bit of a mess, aren't you? What's all this on your head? What's all this on your head for, eh? Anyway, you're not much better. Right, so better just turn the radio off.
You can't get with it.
Due to copyrights. You stay out there. Right, okay, Forge is coming on pretty good. Still got a few little jobs to do on it. So what I've managed to sort out is I've got the fan hooked up. Now, it might be, well, it probably is extremely likely that I'm going to need to fit. Let's just dump some gloves here. To fit a heat shroud. Now I've got some sort of like composite material that looks like asbestos, and that can probably have a sheet sort of fitted up and across here to protect the heat from this affecting the plastic. So I'm hoping that will be good enough. I think it's probably a polypropylene fan case. But in any case, that'll have cold air being sucked in, or air being sucked in from here. Whether it's cold or not when it's so close to here is another matter, but it'll have air sucked in here and then blowing out through this pipe. So hopefully the fan inside, or the fan case, will be kept cool by the fact that the fan is working. But that's yet to be found out. So other things you can see, I've mounted the legs on here. I've used uni-strut channel for the legs, 4 legs, and I've put some steel box here, which is leftovers from when I did the framework, tubular framework of my garage. So I've cut these. Funny shapes they were, but I've managed to do it. Welded them on in the 4 corners, put the legs on. So I've used nuts and channel nuts inside to lock them. So basically, just take those 4 bolts out, or loosen them, and the legs drop out. So that's all good. Right, so this is bolted in. This is the what do we call this? The air supply pipe and the ash spout or whatever. I can't think of the real names, or I don't know them. Basically, this is down here is for letting the ash out at the bottom. That's basically just a piece of studding with a gate hasp welded on, and a bit of steel and a heavy weight on here to make sure that it drops and stays closed. Then I've managed to lash up a little bit of this stainless steel flexible air piping, which is used for chimneys. You can get this on eBay. I think this was £6 for a metre of it, so that's good. That's bolted up there. So there you can see the top. So I've used M10 bolts. You know, if they burn up, whatever, I replace them. I decided better probably to just put bolts right through it than to thread the 6mm steel plate. That doesn't need to be on there anymore. Right, so what I'm going to be doing is, this is going to be a coal stroke clinker grinder. You can see. So what I'm going to be doing is fitting some 40mm square steel bar in there. Basically a square section of steel with a hole right through it. So it's I think it was 40mm, maybe 30 actually. Yeah, thinking about it. Yeah, I think it's 30mm. See? So there's a piece of 30mm box section. So what I've done is I've ordered a piece, very short stubby piece, 100mm long, off eBay, of steel bar. So we're going to have to cut that down, put a hole possibly right through the middle, or at least in each end, and then cut and weld this bar back into the two ends of it, depending on how I feel on the day. So basically, as that rotates in that gap, albeit in that position like that, that will allow me to grind up and process any ash from coal or clinker and let it drop down to the ash bucket, which will be underneath. So it's all going pretty well. The fan is going to have a speed controller on it, because at the moment that's just going to be too much blow. Right, so I've positioned the forge that way round in the end. I realised that I was going to need to have more room for the fan sticking out over there and not have it stuck right next to where I've got the anvil. Now the anvil, I've basically stuck it on some wheels, because I'm working in an area where I'm going to eventually have a vehicle parked in here as well, in and out. And I decided I want the anvil to be able to be shifted around, so I've stuck it on these on this little buggy which I've made up yesterday, and I can wheel it in and out. I know it's not the most stable of ideas, putting it on a pair of wheels, and the wheels could have done with being wider apart, but I wanted to leave them fairly close so that I can work metal over the sides of it without the wheels clashing with the anvil. So it's one of those questions, isn't it? At the end of the day, the anvil's got a fair bit of mass in it, so if I start pounding at it, you know, it's not going to shift around quite so much, but time will tell. Right, so I've eventually got my little block of steel, and you can see when I use the hand winder on the side, it does that, and sort of like grinds the will grind the coal or coke up, you know. Right, so there we go. So I've made my little gadget, my little ash trap here. Got the fan connected up. Now I definitely know that the fan has got some issues. It's a plastic bloody fan, and it's right next to the forge. So it cost me £8. I just don't really want it to be too bulky, because I want to store other things in here, you know. So I don't want the thing 2 meters away from the forge. So I'm hoping to try and get away with using some fireboard and screening it off. Okay, so in order to do my first test on the forge, I did have some existing coal. I don't know, in the old days I used to call these coke. You know, I can't think what they're exactly called, but these are like pressed and shaped, you know, so that. Hang on, phone. Right, one of the reasons I don't really like having mobile phones, people ring me all the time. Very annoying. Certainly don't have a smartphone. I never get anything done. Right, so don't know where it was. Anyway, in order to do a test on this, I had this this coal, this compressed stuff, and I believe it's less, it's more smokeless, I should say, and for household use and so on. But I don't believe it gives off such a great heat compared to more natural coal, or certain types of more natural coal. So I'm probably going to use it in some sort of way, but just to add into the forge, to make up the amount of coal. So I may even smash it up, I don't know. Anyway, so I've been out and I've bought some coal from a local vendor. The unfortunate thing is the lumps of the coal are quite large for forge work. Now this is, I believe it comes from Brazil. It's Brazilian coal. Here in the UK we bring our coal in from another country now. That's the way it is. So what I've done is I've smashed it up with a little engineering hammer on the floor, swept it up, and I've stuck it in an old paint tub. So that is the state of my coal now, granulized slightly. Maybe I should make it even smaller. Now, I believe the way to go on this is to basically crunch up some paper, leave the vent open down there, possibly not even have any wind, any air blowing through while you start this, but you crunch up some paper. Ideally you want a paper which burns easily. Unfortunately, lots of modern paper, well, paper sold in the UK now, has got a lot of clay in it and acts as a fire depressant. So it's not easy to start a fire with paper anymore, particularly if it's document paper. White document paper holds a lot of clay. So what I'm trying is a bit of wrapping paper, because I don't buy newspapers. I haven't bought a newspaper. I don't know if I've ever bought a newspaper, really. So there you go. I'm going to try Christmas wrapping paper. So you basically put a ball of this in the bottom of the forge, and then you put some of your coal on top of it, and you try lighting it, and you hope that it's going to ignite the coal. That's the simple way, or that's the basic old-fashioned way of trying to do it. The other option is you could use fire lighters or use a propane torch. So that's what some people do. They use a like, going back a lot of years, more years than I will admit to. We used to start coal fires in the house, and we used to have a gas jet which we stuck underneath the fire, and it had a row of flames coming up underneath to set the coal burning, and then you'd remove the gas jet. So some people have like a stick that they poke in, which connects up to a propane gas bottle like down there, and they poke that into the base of the coal, and they get the coal burning in that manner. So that's another way. So I'm going to have a little play around and see if starting this with a simple cigarette lighter and so on is going to do it. I suppose other people put fluids on it, maybe even petrol or lighter fluid to get the thing burning. As I say, modern paper doesn't want to burn. In fact, quite often you put a match to it and so on, it goes out, it puts the match out. So I'm going to be trying this and see what I do. Give you an update in a minute. Right, thing is, what I'm using here is virgin coal. It's not already been partly burned. Now when you burn coal, it goes through a stage called coking, where it burns off some of the gases, waste gases out of the coal, and the coal, when it becomes coke, it's more ready and easy to set fire to. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that at this point, so I'm using virgin coal. So I'm putting the dust, coal dust and everything onto this paper now to try and get it to light with that. And there's no guarantee that this is going to work. In fact, I'm betting it's probably not. So what I have done is I've turned the fan on, but at quite a low rate. In fact, it's not even spinning yet. Right, that's on at a low rate now. Now, some people use an old system and it has a speed controller called a rheostat, but this being a modern speed controller, it won't be a rheostat, it will be a pulse width modulation PWM gadget which pulses the motor on and off. Now sometimes PWM is going to have issues with the motor and it might not start off. So what I've had to do is give the fan a little prod with a piece of metal bar, and that started it spinning. So, as I say, modern paper doesn't like to burn very easily. If it was newspaper, old-fashioned newspaper, then fine, but you can see even gift wrapping paper doesn't burn, it goes out. Naturally, doesn't burn anymore. So this would be why a lot of people tend to use propane torches to try and get the fire to start. It's like you're trying to start a fire with a piece of soil, because there's that much clay in the paper. Other option could be put some hay in there. So I might give that a go. So I'm going to rake this off again and try something different underneath, because paper seems to be useless unless you buy newspaper. I could go buy a newspaper so I could burn it. That might be an idea. Most of the news is rubbish anyway. Okay, so attempt number 2. That's hay, bit of Christmas wrapping paper, and then granulated coal dust on the surface. And let's see if we can start a fire now. Okay. Does hay want to burn? No, hay doesn't want to burn either. People say how easy it is to start fires. You know? All it takes is a match. Yeah. Okay. Right, so attempt number 3. Hay doesn't burn, paper doesn't burn, so we go to a propane torch. Torch off. Now with any luck, should be able to get something going now. That's with luck. Fan is running, but on a very low blow. With any luck, the coal is actually starting to burn now. So what we're getting is flames on the coal and a lot of fumes coming off because it's virgin coal. And a lot of it is missing my chimney. One of the reasons it doesn't want to go up this chimney is because the chimney is not sufficiently hot. One way to get the chimney to work better is to preheat the chimney. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my propane torch. So by basically getting the propane torch and blowing some hot air up there, I'll heat the air in the chimney so that it draws better. You can sort of see already that the smoke is now trying to draw up the chimney easier than it was a moment ago. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I've just turned the fan up. And you can see increasing the airflow has made the flames grow considerably in this fire, and that should start it to burn more. Once I've got more heat into the fire, then I should be able to wind the fan back down again and reduce the flame, which I'm going to do now. But I just want to start it going. So you can see by altering the volume, altering the speed of the fan, I can control the flame. So I'm now turning it back down. So the flame has now died down, changing the airflow. If I turn it back up again, you'll see it pick up again. You can also adjust the airflow a little bit by using the coal grinder, which is underneath. That can affect which way the air flows a little bit and grind some of the wasted powder down into the tube underneath. I wish I could remember the names of these things, but at any rate, it's working. all accounts, I could start using this probably pretty soon. But this is really just a test to make sure that the forge does light and does function to some degree. It's going to take a little bit of bit of practice, me playing around with this, to be able to use it in a good manner. So basically poking some of this around, hopefully I can disperse and broaden the actual burning area that the fire is using. So even poke some of these other lesser useful briquettes on. So there we go. So at this point, yeah, I can still easily touch the outer metal parts of the forge. There's no heat got into this yet. It's just not been running long enough. So I may find that this plastic fan unit is going to do the job okay. At the most, it might just require this fire retardant board as a shield between the motor and the forge, just fitted in around here. So in general, I would say this is actually a success up to now. See, the fan's only just spinning now. Well, still doing probably a good couple of hundred RPM, but I've turned it down, and so you can see a nice red glow down in there. So the coals are actually getting good and hot. If I was to start putting some metal into this, I imagine I could soon start getting some heat into whatever I want. But I'm going to have a play around with this myself while I'm not videoing it, because this is a slow process, having a play around with a forge, seeing what you can do. But for an initial start, this isn't too bad, considering I've only just made the forge out of scrap materials, really. Didn't have to go buying any expensive components. It's all been done fairly cheap. The metal top, which I've used for this, has been the most expensive piece, and we're probably talking about £20. See, turning the fan down has reduced the flame, but the coal should still be glowing down there in the bottom. See, so anyway, So that's how you can possibly just put the fire out, by turning the fan off completely, and it will die down. Let's just wind it back up again and just see what it does. There's the problem. The fan has actually stopped spinning. As I say, it's because I'm using a pulse width modulated system that the motor doesn't want to kick in. Now I've turned the fan back on, flames will start again and the fire will pick up. You can see straight away. It's going to go again now. So, using this coal and this forge, I'm always going to need some airflow from the fan unit to keep this going. But that's not really a problem. I've just got to get to handling the fan and the speed controller slightly easier. As I say, the speed controller was probably about £13 on eBay. It's just a Chinese one, and it's all marked up in Chinese. No English writing on it. So, say if I want to put this fire out, it would be quite easy to just turn the motor controller off, and the fan will stop, and the flames and fire will extinguish. If I wind it back up again, then I'll be getting a lot more heat generated, and the flames will pick up. Sort of like a blast furnace, really, I suppose, forcing air into it. You can see a lot of the coal down there at the bottom is actually burnt up now, become clinker and is not usable. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to probably stop this now, let it go out, and then I'll restart it and have a play around with it myself later. So, power off. And that should die down and go out shortly by itself. I dare say another way to put it out completely would be to starve it of air by putting a cover over it and let it extinguish a little bit faster. Some people sprinkle water over it as well, but only in small amounts. Just scatter some water and that helps cool it down and put it out quicker. But I'm not too concerned at the moment. I'm just going to let this die out by itself. I've got plenty of coal, so I'm going to let it die down by itself and potentially warm the building slightly, because it is winter, it's January. So okay then.